I really, I mean, when I was a kid, when I first got started in the world, I just felt like I was just so afraid, like, I would be just jumping around. I mean, just feeling into it to tell the story. I'm feeling that energy again. I'm like, I'm scared. And I'm like, people would come over for dinner. I'd be hiding under the kitchen table and waiting for them to leave. I know how to handle the energy. And, so those type of things were commonplace for me as a kid, to be hiding out. And, I had a few friends and all that stuff. And, but I just really had a hard time, being able to deal with the energies around me. I really felt like, people are kind of crazy, I think that's what was going through my mind. But I was really in this, like, just observant state with everything, where I was just really, everybody's talking, and there's just so many crazy things being said. It seems like and so I was just kind of in that place of just kind of watching for so many years, the quiet one, and a lot of energy built up, and it was tough, because I always, I even had this experience today, but it's like, it's tough when you know things, and it's like, why aren't people seeing this? Why don't they understand? Like, if you just would open your heart, and just let the beauty of this moment unfold, like how awesome life can be. And like, somehow I knew that, but it's like I had a hard time dealing with, my finger was pointing out, I think, ultimately, as I was growing up, and especially my teenage years, of like, why don't they get it? Of course there's something for me to get, but I was just having a really hard time. And, people would see my gifts in that I was able to predict things that, other people just wouldn't be able to predict. It's just uncanny predictions, sports predictions and things like that, where, okay, the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. It was back in the 80s, and like, they were nothing, when I predicted it, and they came like gangbusters, and they won the Super Bowl. So things just like all these little things like this were happening, and I never thought anything of it. And in fact, I was so invisible, and the pain of it was so much that one time when I was 11, I was working with my dad and in the salon maintenance company. And I was picking up grass piles and everything, and I got in the back of his dump truck, was attached to a trailer with a bunch of heavy lawn equipment, and I was up there, and he had, as we would say now, immigrants from, Mexico working with him, and which is a whole other story, because my dad was just such a massive heart. But anyway, I was up there, and I didn't know what to do, because they were about to get in the car and I wasn't finished. And I thought, well, they probably know I'm up here, and just assuming, and I didn't want to speak up. So I was so invisible, I wouldn't speak up. I wouldn't, they got in the car, and I was so freaked out, I went to jump off the dump truck from way up high, and I fell underneath the trailer. It ran over me. And, there's no way I could have got underneath that trailer and got run over and not die, and without angelic help. I mean, so they totally ran over me. I thought I was going to die. So I was like, this is an interesting way to die. And, but when it ran over me, all I got was like a slight fracture in my leg, even though it ran over my leg. And I was, relatively fine given what happened. And, I was in a lot of pain from that, but it really just showed, like, some part of me knew that they were going to get in a truck, and they didn't know I was up there. And I didn't speak up. I didn't show up. And I was in deep depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of heavy energy. I had to see psychiatrists. I ultimately went to therapists and all that stuff, too. And I was just trying to feel better every single day. I was like, how can I finally feel better? I feel like life totally sucks. This is, like, the most painful thing, to be alive in this body with being a teenager and, having this energy of like popularity and, fakeness and weird stuff, to me anyway. And had a lot of problems with that. So I just, I acted out at times and things like that, like teenagers do, doing little mischievous things. But, but mostly I just was really just trying to feel better. So I was working out and that kind of stuff. But eventually what I did is I just started finding the more I could express myself, the better off I was. So I started with journaling. I started to express to myself, and there was lots of negative energy, but it was good because I was channeling my energy. And then eventually I got into creative writing in college, and then I was just like, well, creative writing, I don't know if that's really for me. I need to figure myself out, though. I need to figure other people out. So I started doing that, and then progressively I started feeling a little bit better. But then there was always the other shoe falling off, going through a master's program, for example, where my teachers didn't understand me. They're like, I'm tuning into people, I'm working with them completely differently than everybody else. And other students would come to me asking me questions because I knew things about people that other people wouldn't understand. But my teachers didn't like it because I wasn't following the textbook. So they're like, go back to or whatever. And I really struggled, they held me back, because they felt like I didn't fit their, model. So, I had a lot of stories like that. And then, when, in there too, I had a sales job, I was trying to bring my enthusiasm to the world, but I didn't know what it was consciously. I knew I was here to bring the light or something or enthusiasm. I didn't know what it was. So I was just like grasping and, just piece by piece it started coming to me. Okay, I want to do healing. Okay, I finally got to admitting that. And it's like, okay, I want to be an energy healer and, allowing myself to understand what that was for me, to be able to tune into my gifts, to be able to know everything, to know anything, be able to do and then work with the energy to allow anything to happen. Anything that was true, anything that was really like there in the flow, to be potential, I could bring that into my life. I started to realize that's true for me, and that could be true for anybody. So I started learning things like that through the energy scanning, to be able to tune into energy and to people's energy fields, and then to be able to align those energies up so that anything can happen. And so it really was an arduous journey to get to that point because I really struggled financially. Financially I totally wiped out everything. I ran through all my credit cards. I mean, the 6K credit card debt or whatever. I released the home, all because I couldn't come out of the box all the way and as a healer. And so it was extraordinarily painful, yet I was completely determined to get to wherever the heck I'm supposed to be going. And that's where I finally hit my breakthrough, was when I just couldn't take one more day of not making money at the level I needed to take care of my family. Because we were going to, food pantries and, we couldn't pay our bills, nothing. So I was just like, okay, I kept having to be the affirmation that I have to be able to thrive as a healer. And healers are meant to thrive. And it's ridiculous that we're still dealing with these energies. So we need to break through. And so I did. And once I was able to do that, it just, the people I helped were healers a lot of times. It just came to me that, wow, I should be helping other healers to do what I just did. Because eventually I was starting to make money and making enough to be able to pay some bills and, get caught up and things like that, and getting to six figures and all that good stuff. And then I was like, I want to help other people. They think, oh, I'm so great, but they have amazing gifts and they're so powerful. And I want to help all the other healers on the planet as much as possible. Because what's going to help create greater impact and change on the planet more than the healer archetype and the healers themselves actually claiming their power, their authentic, clear power and their gifts, and then allowing themselves to prosper and thrive from that place. Because we're energy magicians. We can do anything. And we come from the light. We're here, we're just such loving spirits. And we can make a huge, massive difference. But we keep giving our power away to our fears, to our doubts, to other beings that we say they're the ones that have the power. So many of us are doing that, including healers. We have got to stop that. We want to start just focusing on the clear opportunity to be of service, loving service to everything, loving everyone and everything, and seeing how can we contribute from that place of bringing all of ourselves to the table to make a massive difference on the planet. And that's really where all this stuff has come from for me, including the energy scanning, which that technique came, really from me just like, how do I focus my ability to tune into everything? I mean, and then the technique got downloaded into me, and then I was able to do these scans where people were just consistently being kind of blown away or saying, always saying things like it's amazing, those types of things, and being able to bring that forth. So anyway, so I don't want to kind of keep going on and on here right now, but I just want to just, kind of, when you say the pain, I can't, begin to describe the levels of pain I've gone through, how many nights of the dark soul I've gone through beyond, what I can describe. how deep the depression, how I felt like I wanted to leave the world countless times. Very deep, dark stuff. So, but I just kept going, and now people, many people just, they see the introvert that I am, but they also see the inner child of me that's been liberated, and it's like having a great time and cheering everybody on, and they see the amazing energy, and it's just like, wow, there you are. That's kind of how people experience me, is like they've seen me be the quiet Dan or Daniel or whatever, like all of a sudden they see me coming out of the box, and it's like, whoa, and that's what my students get to experience. That's what I'm so grateful for, is they get to have a similar experience. Like, even if they're extroverts, they're like, well, finally I'm being me, as a healer and as a being, and they start showing up fully. But the first thing is to start realizing you have these amazing gifts. You're so tuned in. We're paying attention to just what's right in our face at the physical, human level, and we don't realize there's so much energy available for us to tune into anything and everyone, and to let anything happen if we truly want to let it happen. So, so anyway, but waking up to that fact is a big breakthrough, and there's always more beyond that. But that's where I wanted to kind of start tonight.